Listening to podcasts is no replacement for real training. While we attempt to provide accurate commentary, we hold no responsibility on how you use the information we provide. Get medical training. In the blink of an eye, everyday order can be replaced with once-in-a-lifetime chaos. Be prepared. This is the Civilian Medical Podcast.
It's always so awkward waiting for the music to finish because we're just sitting here staring at each other.
That's why I was smiling, because I was like, we didn't talk about who was going to do the intro. So like,
I know.
Well, let's just do the awkward silence. So
I know. I was watching you. I was like, his lips aren't moving. I have to do something quick.
I was going to hold off and see how long we go with awkward silence. But hey, guys, welcome to another episode of Civilian Medical Podcast. Lieutenant Ellenberg. Hey, I told you about the podcast today, so hopefully she's listening. We're at episode 72. I'll have Mrs. Skinny Medic on with us today, Shawn. Apparently, I was wrong about some things. Imagine that as a husband, being wrong about something. And then we want to talk about the disaster, hurricane that came through our property and our community and stuff. And hopefully we don't get a divorce in the middle of this episode.
Exactly. And as far as you saying the wrong thing, I'd be more surprised if you said the right thing ever.
Dang. This is 2-on-1. I already feel it. This is it. I'm going to lose another co-host and get a divorce.
Perfect.
Always one show.
And then you can start a new podcast, the Lonely Loser Podcast.
Oh, this is not fun. I'm just going to drink coffee. You guys talk. And I'm just here at the end to show you some medical products.
Perfection. So what did you get wrong?
No, so I'm trying to remember. So I think it was, did you say Gage had a colostomy, ileostomy?
I think I said ostomy.
Okay, so he does have an ostomy bag. There's a difference with the ileostomy and colostomy. So Gage had his large intestine removed. And so what actually comes out of his stomach, the stoma, is his small intestine. So it's an ileostomy, whereas a colostomy is when you still have part of your large intestine, if I remember right, and it's actually larger. So I know my dad people used to say colostomy, and he'd be like, no, I have an ileostomy. So that's one of the big differences with that. What else was I fussing at you for?
I don't know. It's only an hour-long show.
Good times.
But
probably more stuff, but yeah.
Yes, probably. But that was the big thing is kind of there are two different ways that people can have an ostomy bag. And those were the two, whether it's the small intestine that is still left or if it's part of the large intestines remaining. So
and because of what he was diagnosed with, there's just like no recovering the large intestine. It's like just basically got to get rid of it. Everything's got to go.
His was so diseased and he was not responding to a medicine that it was inflamed and irritated, and it was actually getting worse. And when they went in to do the surgery, it actually started coming apart. Mm-hmm. And we had discussed the option of doing a temporary disconnect, leaving the colon in there and treating it for 6 more months of medicine to see if they could reattach. But we had already decided we didn't want to do that because it was 6 months of him still feeling bad with the diseased colon in him, trying to treat it. So we were decided to go ahead and take it all the way out. And then when they went into surgery, it actually did start coming apart. So we made the right call there because at some point it probably would have burst. So we did need to get that out. So they did that. They did leave a small section so that he could have the option for a J pouch surgery later on. But with as hard as surgery was on his body, we really don't want to do that. It's just nice to have that option down the road.
For sure.
So,
makes total sense.
Do what?
I said makes total sense.
Yeah.
He still had a cough, which is kind of weird. So we took him to an ENT a week or two ago, and he's had a cough since then. And they took a camera and put it down his nose so you can see like the sinus cavity, and then went all the way down to his trachea where you can see the voice cords and stuff. So like as a paramedic, it was kind of cool to see that because they could make Gage talk and you can see him move and stuff. But then you realize like that's your son's airway. So
right.
A little bit awkward, but it was definitely pretty cool. So we're still working through that process of why he's got this cough and no one really understands why.
Yeah. So I think we are doing a lung scope with pulmonary, and ENT is going to do a a more involved airway scope. Basically, they're trying to coordinate to do those together. So he's only going under anesthesia one time versus two, since he's already been under anesthesia a lot at the age of 16. So
I know. Okay. Definitely tougher than everyone I know, pretty much.
Yeah, he is definitely a tough kid. So we're thankful for how good he's doing. Like, he went to his co-op's barn dance last night. So he's doing normal teenage boy stuff. Just still have a few things we're working through.
That's good. Yeah.
Definitely.
I'm glad.
Yes.
Say again.
He looks like an 80s kid. He's got his like flowing hair. He drives with T-tops off. Like he was born in the wrong time era.
Living his best
life. Yours.
Right. Exactly. Wait a minute. So yeah, Helene came through, and man.
Yeah, when I said we ended this episode the first episode back, I was like, we'll do it once a month. There's plenty of stuff that happens that we can talk about in a month's time frame. But I didn't realize we were going to have a hurricane come through our area, especially in the upstate of South Carolina. Like that, that was not on my radar.
I agree, man. I was just looking at a map this morning of some other stuff, and I started going down the eastern coast there, and I was like, man, that's so high up compared to like what we normally see.
It was just funneling water. Like we knew it was kind of like we had rain before the storm. So like they were telling us this is going to be bad. Like they were using catastrophic historical flooding. Like they were giving us some terms that was like, oh, wow. Like we knew this was going to be bad. And we got pretty good rain before the hurricane ever hit us, because it was just funneling up like a hose pipe out of the Gulf. And so we kind of were worried anyway. And then when it hit, we were not ready for the amount of winds and stuff like that we normally have. And like I've been through some tornadoes with my county. I've been through portions of flooding and power outages, but literally at one point we had 100% power outage inside our county. And I've never been a part of anything like that before.
It's pretty nuts, man.
Didn't you say y'all had like 200 calls come in 1 hour?
Yeah, we had like 250 911 calls coming in an hour. And so we were trying to triage out, like, ambulance is coming, ambulance is not going. And at the beach, they stop ambulances a lot. Like in Florida, on the coastline, if hurricanes coming through, they'll just say, hey, there's no ambulance coming once the winds reach this amount miles per hour. Ours was 45 mile an hour sustained winds, because we're driving a big billboard across the road. Like you don't need it blown off, or trees falling, things like that. So that was a big kind of culture shock to our community, who said, hey, we're not responding. We will as soon as the winds are safe. So that was kind of a big deal for us. But it happens all the time in the coastline. And so we had said we're going to stop responding to calls. We still had one crew out. They ended up getting stuck due to trees falling on either side of the ambulance. And it took us 21 hours to get to them. There were so many trees down. We had heavy equipment. We had state task force. We had National Guard. Like all these people working on getting to them, and it literally took them that long to make access to them. When they did, we still couldn't get the ambulance out. It was basically just a walking path to get down the road. I've been up there this past week, and it literally was like a tornado just kind of followed the road up, and there's just trees down everywhere. And we said we were going to stop responding to calls, and then we literally had a call come in immediately that said someone was trapped under a tree.
Oh, man.
And we had to make a decision that we weren't going to respond, that we couldn't send people out. We had made a decision. The only thing that was going to break through that was a pediatric, like unconscious or pediatric cardiac arrest, where they're not breathing, no pulse. And the decision was made. They were going to send me in like a quick response vehicle and a fireman. And that was it. That was our game plan. And so for about an hour, we did not respond to any emergency calls. We just kind of stacked them up and held them. And then we started dispatching ambulances based on priority. What was the highest priority? Someone stuck in a house, stuck in a tree, got most priority. If you were just without oxygen, you were a low priority at this time.
Mm-hmm. That's got to be an impossible choice.
Not fun choice, making those decisions. It was me and my EMS director were making those decisions, and that was not fun. Candace was at home. Candace was good though, like because we had the whole house generator, so we were able to, she had power and things like that. We lost power 7:30 that morning.
I think so. It was pretty early in the morning. We lost power. Normally, he is home during the storm, and he was actually working. You worked 30 hours straight, I think. So he had gone in the morning before and then was supposed to get off and did not get off. So that was different, him not being there during the storm. That was really the first time we'd been through that. But we knew we had the home generator, and we had all this. We kind of had a plan. We'd already laid out candles and different things. So the generator kicked on, and the kids and I went and we filled up the bathtub upstairs and a bathtub downstairs with water, because that way, we didn't have to run the generator the whole time. We could flush toilets with that. So we kind of did a few things we needed to do, and then I cut the generator back off until when we needed to cut it back on to cool things down, or somebody wanted to get a shower. So that was really nice having the home generator. In the 20 years we've been married, typically the storm hits and he would be home with us for the storm, and then he would take off to go help whatever needed to be done. And oftentimes we would lose power after he left. We had tornadoes come through a couple of years ago, and that happened. It was weird. Like, he was already gone and then our power went out. And so I was running around with our little small generator. We didn't have the home house generator, trying to get it, the gas in it and get it cranked up and get extension cords running everywhere. And that's kind of exhausting. And I've done it because you had to, but it was really nice to just be able to turn it on and off with a button this year.
I bet. And that it's a huge expense, but you guys have gone through enough stuff that it was definitely worth it, right?
Yes. And we have a well. And so when we built this house, we knew we were going to have a well. And that was one of our first projects once we moved in, was to get the whole house generator for this reason with storms, is that we don't want to be without water. It's not fun when you're needing to flush toilets and you don't have water. So that was a big goal for us, and it was definitely worth it.
For sure. So what kind of injuries did you see, like specifically, once you guys did finally go out?
So we saw lots of trauma, whether it be people trapped in trees, trapped in their houses, lots of people that, probably were not super good at using a chainsaw, or now have a gas-powered chainsaw in their hands. So we saw a lot of lacerations, fractures, arms and legs. We had a gentleman that the tree come up and hit him in the face, that caught him in the face. He actually had everything right, had all the protective equipment on, everything like that. And a tree fell beside him. He didn't see it, and it caught the tree limb he was cutting and popped it up. So, just bad luck. I tell you, the biggest thing we had was people who don't have oxygen, or who are on oxygen, that had no way to have long-term use of that oxygen, whether or not have portable oxygen tanks, or like the oxygen concentrators they didn't have power. So we had to set up a medical shelter just for people to go plug their concentrator in and sit there. And that was our biggest need. It felt like the hospital also had some issues where they were telling people, hey, if you come to the hospital, bring your concentrator with you, because we're running out of oxygen. That kind of sounds weird, but we don't have enough medical oxygen for the whole community. So if you're coming here just to plug in your concentrator, bring your concentrator. We need you to do that for us.
Jeez. So lots of blunt force trauma, any like penetrating trauma stuff?
It was mostly blunt, just blunt trauma, just, whether or not, no one really, I don't think anybody hurt themselves with chainsaws, but people definitely got some lacerations and cuts. But it was more, we saw some ankle fractures, some leg fractures, and things like that. So just people out moving into this debris field that probably didn't need to be out there.
Totally makes sense. Yeah.
And it took us, there was one guy that wrecked, and he may still be laying there in a ditch.
Did you say it was a moped?
Yeah, it was a moped. He still may be there. I could not physically get to him. And we just kept going around. It's this tree's blocked, this tree's blocked, this tree's blocked, this tree's blocked. So far as medical, people are going to have to be self-sufficient for a while, just because we can't get to them. And we're trying our best. We're absolutely doing everything we could do, and you just can't get to them. So what a call would normally we would respond to, we get there in 5 minutes, was taking us hours to get to. So to be able to just have some basic first aid knowledge. The other thing we saw was bees, lots of bee stings, because I guess they're getting displaced out of their home too because of the flooding and stuff. But bee stings, so Benadryl, tablets, chewable Benadryl, liquid Benadryl was a big need for us as well.
That's in the boo-boo care, right?
It is in the boo-boo. Yeah. Yeah. So all of our first aid kits carry Benadryl, Tylenol, things like that, some basic pain management and Benadryl, stuff like that.
Interesting. So what other products would you recommend for people based on the injuries that you saw that civilians have access to and can get?
So I think a Mylar space blanket, because the temperatures were dropping, especially now, in Western North Carolina, the temperatures are dropping. So be able to keep patients warm. I would have liked to see people have the tarps that we have, the drag sheets to carry to be able to move patients. Because a lot of times we just physically could not get an ambulance there to them, things like that. And obviously, a stop the bleed kit. Having a tourniquet, pressure bandage, gauze with you is important, especially if you're working with equipment that you're not so familiar with. Accidents happen, so be able to stop major bleeding and be able to control that. And then just some basic meds. We talked about in our video about having some sort of battery backup generator, things like that, whether it be a Honda generator, like the gas powered generators, something like that. Especially if you have a loved one who's on oxygen, like that's a big deal. Like you need to build a plan ahead and think about that, because it may be hours or it could be days. There's people still without power right now in Western North Carolina, which is about an hour north of us. We actually went up there last week, I think, to help some friends, but I mean, they're still without power up there. And, we've got people here that are without internet and people are freaking out, and I get it. They're mad. But our neighbors to the north of us still don't have power.
My uncle, I just found out my uncle who lives about 30 minutes from us, he's still in South Carolina. He just got power back this week. Their neighborhood in particular was hit really hard. In the one Northwood Hills where I grew up, there was lots of trees and it went down. And so they just got their power back, which was surprising because most of our area I thought had our power back. But there's still a few places here that we're finally getting it back this week. So
that's so nuts. So does Medical Gear Outfitters actually have like a natural disaster recovery kit that has, like multiple space blankets, the tarp, boo-boo kit, med kit?
I don't know. Maybe we need to work together on something like that, because the last kit you designed, the civilian medical kit, was pretty good. So like hand sanitizers, hand wipes and stuff like that, some like cleaners, things like that. So maybe we need to work on that. Maybe some kind of disaster kit we could throw together in a case or something like that we could put out.
And like, one of the, just like a Pelican sized briefcase style.
Yeah.
That's probably a really good idea.
Yeah.
Just to have that stuff ready. Cause I mean, there's no better thing to train you in what you need is not having the stuff you need when something bad happens like this. It's just nuts.
Yeah.
The thing I talked about in our YouTube video about Starlink internet. And I was like, man, like that. I mean, I know that seems to be all the rage right now. And like, I know a couple of people that went to Western North Carolina. There's a couple of YouTubers and basically dropped their Starlink in the middle of a community, and people were able to text and communicate and stuff like that. And so I was on a call this week. We were up in the northern part of our county, and I had zero cell service when we pulled in. And I was like, dadgummit. And so like I started saying, hey, we need Starlink here. I'm like, we could at least have some kind of communication with, text message, email, stuff like that. And we have our radios, and they're fairly good up there. And so then the next day, the next county over brings their Starlink in.
Wow.
Deploys it in the middle of the parking lot, and we have internet. And so we're talking with some bystanders, some family stuff. I'm like, hey, we need to send emails. And we're like, well, my boss was like, hey, as soon as I get cell phone service, we'll send those emails. And I was like, hey, I can get you connected to the internet. And so we connected him to Starlink, and he's immediately sending emails that are very important to the situation. I was like, oh, this is awesome. So to actually be able to use Starlink, I was very impressed with it. I went from the YouTube video we posted on the channel going, oh, I think this is a good idea, to actually using it this week. And I love it. They were getting like 160 download speed on it, and we're in the middle of nowhere. So I was impressed with it.
Yeah, it's super awesome. That's
faster than my home internet. I mean, we're getting like 110, I think. And so it's faster, and we're in the middle in the woods.
Yeah. I have a Starlink. I ordered it before any of this stuff happened, mainly because I think Comcast is a bunch of dirty commies and they're stealing people's money, but that's a topic for another show. Yeah. So I'm going to try to move to Starlink here at the office, just because I've had it with the competitors. And honestly, like, I think we have really seen how important and special it is to be able to, connect straight to the sky. So I think really good things.
And that's what we were talking about too, even for like our first responders, like just to be able to tell when I left the other morning, I was just going to the office, and the next thing I know, I'm on the side of a mountain and don't get home till 8 o'clock that night. So I had zero cell phone service. So luckily Candace can see me on Live 360, about where I'm at, but just communication going, hey, I'm good. I'm just on a call. I'll be home late. So that's important.
Well, and I had not heard from him all day the first day when they didn't have the Starlink up there. I knew he was on the call, so I wasn't really too concerned about that. But I had no idea when he'd be home. I was like, the kids are just doing our normal thing. And his mom texted and said, I saw him on the news. Is he home yet? And I'm like, you know more about my husband than I do if you saw him on the news. I haven't heard a peep. He happened to be in the background during one of the press conference or something. And she saw him. And I was like, that's more than I've seen of him.
Dang.
The other thing I think about too is, medications, because now like Western North Carolina, like they're still without power. And so CVS, Walgreens, the pharmacies don't have power. So if you've got your blood pressure medicine, we were kind of talking about like people with bipolar, schizophrenia, these psych meds. Now they're starting to run out of medication. That's going to create problems for society. And like I hate to kind of go down that path, but if we have people who are schizophrenic, bipolar, and they're about their medicines, now we have people that are hearing voices. They're paranoid and they're wandering the streets with no power, no shower, no food. That's a problem. And so kind of thinking about that, having to prep, maybe talk to your doctor to get, a cushion of medication and kind of get a game plan for that as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's actually where I donated my money, was to a dude who was running a bunch of meds into the area, flying a bunch of meds into the area. Cause I was like, yeah, that's super important. And especially like you said, Benadryl, like bee stings, things like that.
Well, and then you have like your random medical supplies, like Gage's ostomy supplies. It's not one of the ones you see an average person having. So that has been something I thought about with Gage's. Like, we have a stockpile, but what happens if our house floods and it washes down the river? There's a girl here locally who has what she calls an angel closet. And so she's actually been taking supplies up to communities and trying to find people who may need ostomy supplies, because that's a rare thing you're going to need. And if you can't get that shipped to you, and you can't get, the local Walgreens doesn't typically have that stuff anyway. And then that's a very specific need. So there's a lot of things like that will come up that you won't think about unless you're in that situation.
Yeah, for sure. So what kind of recovery efforts have you been participating in? Obviously most of the really, really pressing medical stuff probably has slowed down a little bit, I hope. But now what?
Yes, we helped some local. The local sheriff's office was collecting some for a food pantry at a local church. So we kind of helped with some specific items there. They were actually, the sheriff's deputies were driving deliveries to people's houses who could not get out to get to food. Because one thing we did see was a lot of people did not have a lot of food in their house. So when they lost power, they lost everything in their fridge and freezer. So then all they had was maybe their dry goods, and they didn't have much of that. And then they didn't have a way to keep food cold. So there was like daily food deliveries going out. We did send some stuff to North Carolina because their grocery stores got flooded. Ours, even here, they lost power. I went in Walmart like 3 days after the storm had hit, and there was nothing in the refrigerated section. Like, there was no sandwich meats, there was no milk, there was no cheese, no yogurts, there was nothing.
No coffee creamer.
No coffee creamer. There was a few meats in the meat section, but like all the freezer foods were gone. They had to throw everything away. So then people lost food in their houses. The grocery stores lost food, so they couldn't even replace if they didn't have a generator to keep their foods, secure and safe. So we were doing food drives locally for people to help. And then it was the end of the month. So then you have the people who are on food stamps. I don't know if that's what they call them now. They call it something else now. But people who were on that lost their food and then didn't have the funds to buy more food because they were waiting for October. Yeah. So that was a bit of a mess that we saw. So that was a big need, was just getting food and water to people. And so we did help with that locally. We are currently helping get a camper set up with some supplies to send up to North Carolina for housing for people who lost their homes and are having to figure out how to repair, rebuild. Because a lot of these small communities, they don't have a lot of hotels. These are little mountain communities. It's not like on the coast where a hurricane hits and you've got tons of hotels you can evacuate to. They have a limited amount of places they can even stay. And then the whole Southeast was affected by this. So at one point I was trying to help a friend's, her husband had an employee he was trying to find a hotel room for in Colombia, and her internet wasn't working. So she asked me to help her try to find a hotel. And I got on hotels.com. And this was still the end of September. It was like a day or two after the storm. And hotels.com would not even let me search for hotel until October 4th. No hotels would come up.
Whoa.
So yes, which I have never seen that happen before. So I was like, there were tons of people who had evacuated and then probably had been displaced after the storm. And so you've got people who do need to go somewhere and they can't find somewhere, or they don't want to leave their community and their family and their support system. So we have people who are literally choosing to stay in a tent because they don't want to leave their land. So there's some people working on getting campers set up. So we're helping get some supplies to campers.
Sheesh.
So,
What's some of the companies you're working with for donations? So like people are wanting to make donations, but they don't maybe not have connections and they want to help. So
Samaritans Purse is an excellent one. I have a friend in Burnsville who set up a donation site as soon as she got cut out of her neighborhood. They cut the trees out and she got into town, and it was on her heart to help people. She is a real estate in real estate up there. So she knows a lot of those little communities. She calls them the hollers, the people down in the hollers. So she has been running a donation site. She's the one who is helping get campers sorted. So that's where the campers are going. But she said Samaritan's Purse showed up and they've sent people several different days to help her sort supplies and pass out things. So they're a great one to do. She just started a Facebook page. I don't know. She just started it today. I don't know what it is to tell, but they literally have tractor trailers full of supplies coming in that she's given to people.
Okay.
She's also working with Operation Hilo. They have bought some campers that they are trying to disperse to people. And so it's a challenge to figure out who gets the campers. So they are working with a local preacher who is interviewing the families and is actually going to their land, looking at their land to see what destruction actually happened, to make sure these campers are going to people who are going to be displaced from their homes like long term. If they're displaced for like a week or two, obviously, if it's something small they have to fix, we would rather that camper go to a family who may not have a home for winter, especially families with children. So she really has a heart to help. So she's hoping that they can get these campers to people who have children and give them some sort of normalcy, because I can't imagine the trauma these kids are going through, what they've seen. MJ's traumatized just from where 4 years ago we had a lot of tornadoes come through, and she still sleeps with me during storms. She still doesn't want to sleep by herself. And I can't imagine what these kids saw. They saw homes wash away.
Right.
So,
Yeah. And that's the thing is, I think so many people don't realize. They're like, okay, well, yeah, everything kind of was crazy for a little while, but everything will get back to normal now. And that's just not the case. Like, there's no normal anymore. There's nothing left in a lot of places.
yeah. And what's really sad is a lot of the places that have the most damage are the places that are the hard to reach places. They're the people who may not be as comfortable asking for help. So she's literally, as people have come through her supply line, she's telling them, call Samaritan's Purse. They will show up. They will do the hard work. They'll come in and shovel out your house, if you got mud in it. So she's trying to get people to call them and ask for help. But that's one problem they're seeing, is a lot of people just don't want to ask, and they need to ask.
Yeah. Geez, especially. Yeah. Was there any medical interventions that you saw civilians apply when you kind of got there, that they had taken care of business and done well?
yeah, we saw lots of people, even with minor injuries, and that's what we saw too, was a lot of minor injuries that people were bandaging, bandaging wounds up. They're wrapping wounds up. They were making splints. They may not have, commercial splints like AccuSplints, whatever, like we carry at Medical Gear Outfitters, but they were making them. They were making them out of, cardboard, making out pillowcases, things like that. So they were kind of making shift what they had to do. So yeah, like that was pretty cool to see that. Just the people, had a little bit of medical supplies, kind of makes sure if they didn't have it, and they were kind of improvising what they needed. So just kind of drives that importance of just having a good basic first aid kit, some basic first aid knowledge, taking a class and to be able to think about how can I splint the shoulder, how to splint this arm, and having the material to do that. And then a stop the bleed course. I think that's a big one. Just take an afternoon, learn how to control major bleeding with a tourniquet pressure bandage. I didn't see any tourniquets applied while we were there, but it was mostly just, minor injuries. And then thinking about what allergic reaction is. Let's get Benadryl on board quickly, things like that.
Yeah. Do you suspect, I mean, this is going to be ongoing for so long. I imagine you guys will just be busier running calls probably for like the rest of the fall and into the winter, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think they're going to be busier. And then I think just getting access to people, there's still tons of trees down. So even calls now that may take us, what took us 20 minutes to get to now are now 30, 45 minutes just because trees are down. There's still power lines across roads and stuff like that. So just debris field is rough. And like Western North Carolina, like they're hit even harder than we are. So their responders are tired. Like, I'm just being honest. Like, those guys have been up for, a long time, and now their family is also displaced, or their own homes were destroyed during this chaos, and they're out serving their community.
Yeah.
So they're just tired. But I think, we'll see that, some respiratory problems definitely going into the fall, where homes were hit and homes were destroyed. I think we'll see some respiratory, more like pneumonia, some other, diseases that, viruses, even stuff that spreads. I think because of sanitation things that we're going to see, I think diseases will probably spread a little bit more. We'll see some outbreaks of stuff this fall.
Well, and there's a lot they do with these flooding for the houses that are, you can save them. They strip out sheetrock immediately where the flood line was, and they have to spray for mold. So if people aren't getting on this fast enough, they may get mold setting in, and mold will make any respiratory illnesses are going around even worse. So hopefully people are, that's one thing I saw that they're collecting in North Carolina is all the mold remediation kits to try to get people to make sure they're getting that taken care of.
I can only imagine. And then is there areas that first responders haven't even gotten to yet?
We've gotten to everything here. I would assume so, like in West North Carolina, but
I think so. So I went and tried to follow a bunch of different county, city Facebook pages because there was so much stuff going on the internet and social media that you really didn't know how to dig through and sort through getting actual information. So I did go through and do that. And it sounds like most areas they have reached. They may not have the areas like the bridges repaired where it's easy access, but they were doing well checks. I saw they were posting updates on missing people, trying to keep people up to date. And I know that like the death count may still keep rising, sadly, because there is so much debris from the things that washed down the river. Whole houses washed down the river, and there's just piles and piles of debris. So I do feel like that sadly the death count is going to continue to change as they continue to clean up things.
It was interesting how many people didn't have enough food just for a couple of days.
Yeah.
And we were at day 2 or day 3 of this, and people were like calling 911 saying they don't have any food. And we're like, okay, well, we have a pod set up that has MREs. And we're like, okay, that's it. You get MREs and water. But we were 2 days in the storm, and I get financially stuff people can't, but I'm like, at least having a couple of days stored of food. It may not be the best food you want. It may be canned food, some beefaroni, some ravioli. That's my heart. And but some ramen noodles, like that's my heart. And it's cheap. But I was like, having that, just having a little bit of reserve there will go a long way. And it's funny, it's probably bad, but it's funny. Like we had a shelter set up with food coming in, same place the sheriff's office was at. And the sheriff's office said, hey, if you can't get out of your house, we will bring it to you. Just tell us what you need. Mm-hmm. And so this lady comes in or she calls the 911 phone line and says, yep, I need laundry detergent. I need this, and this. Like, she's giving us a shopping list.
Well, didn't she want specific laundry detergent? She was like asking specific brands.
She wanted Tide with non-deodorant, like all this stuff. And like, she was like the food, I don't remember what it was now, but she wanted like, this is what I had to have. And I was like,
she was doing a Walmart pickup.
I was man, like, if you tell me you need laundry detergent to clean clothes, we will get you laundry detergent. We have people that are donating that kind of stuff. I was like, but we can't, I'm not going to get you Tide. Like, whatever this knockoff Walmart brand is probably what you're going to get. So that's what Hoover bought is the cheapest just to get stuff out there. So definitely saw some people that were super grateful that we were out there, but also people that were, I guess, I think they're taking advantage of the situation.
Entitled.
Yes. That's the correct word.
Yes.
Yeah, that's sad. That is sad.
And we are still seeing in the grocery stores. So there's an Ingles warehouse is in North Carolina that flooded, where a lot of their grocery sorting happens. So that got wiped out too. So then that caused a lot of the local grocery sorters, because Ingalls is one of our main stores. So they are now, when they send out pallets of food, they're not sorting them in that warehouse. It's coming from somewhere else. And so they're like, you may not get exactly what you want. And we're seeing that in our local stores, because he's really sad about his favorite creamer. We have yet to find it in our local Ingalls. Like, you go and they only have certain brands, and like the other shelves are just still all empty, where they're not getting that brand because it's not getting sorted the way it normally would.
I'm spoiled.
Hey, was the story about the lady in the detergent, was that actually you, Dietrich?
Yeah, I'm like, I gotta have my Tide. I want my pumpkin spice latte with an extra pump. Like, I didn't need.
What creamer is it that you get that's so like hard to find?
It's oat milk creamer. I don't remember the name of it now. I can picture it in my head, but it's an oat milk creamer, and we like the caramel flavor. And trying to find that right now, I'm gonna have to go to the Publix, I guess.
Will you reach out to them and see if they'll sponsor the podcast? Like, if you do that.
Yeah, I was going to go to the store and like see if I could find some and send a care package.
We'll see if they'll sponsor this podcast. Like, that'd be great.
Exactly.
And completely off topic, it just popped in my head, and it's completely left field, but I'll forget about it if we don't bring it up. Talking to one of our police officer buddies, and he's giving blood the other day. And this is a question for you. Mm-hmm. So he's giving blood. He's got a big giant bore IV catheter in his artery giving blood. And he tells the lady, he goes, what happens if it has pulled this tubing out and left the catheter in my arm? And she was like, I don't know. And he's like, you think I would bleed to death? And she was like, I don't know. And he was like, well, I could put a tourniquet on. And she was like, oh, no, that wouldn't work. And she's like, what? And he says, a tourniquet would stop that. And she's like, no, the catheter would keep the vein open, the artery open, and you would still keep bleeding out. And so we're in the middle of this call. And after the storm, everything like that's going on, he goes, question for you. If I'm giving blood and I just disconnect the tubing and the catheter's still in there pumping blood out, could I get that bleeding stopped? And I was like, yeah, you can put a tourniquet on it.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, the lady at the blood center, blood whatever connection said, no, I would bleed to death. And I was like, no, like that's no different than me shooting you in the arm or stabbing you in the arm. I can still stop that bleeding, even with the catheter still in there. So
right.
We're on the side of the road. A natural disaster has come through, and we're having a discussion on whether he could bleed to death giving blood.
Yeah, that's such a weird take. No, it would keep going. Like, no, there would be no blood even getting there. It was stopped upstream. The dam has not broken.
He said, we were sitting on the side of the road. Like I said, there's trees down, this big disaster. He goes, I think I want to come on your podcast. I was like, okay, why do you want to come on the podcast? He was like, I got to talk about this story. I was like, okay, so we may get him on the podcast. But yeah, he was very concerned about this. I was like, maybe we need to do a Stop the Bleed class for the blood connection. Maybe that's my next adventure.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was just thinking. I was like, I know that your system there that you run is like good to go. Everything's fine. But have you seen any other other first responders, kind of maybe not directly in your neck of the woods, but some that you've had to coordinate with in other places? Have you seen any things that were maybe less advanced or technologically complete than the systems you guys use?
I think for us, like we were good on manpower. Like we were able to run the calls that came in. We did have to, stack some calls in the very beginning, but within a short amount of time, we caught back up. Other services in my area had to call for outside resources. Like it was kind of weird. Like the systems that are along the coastline came up to help us, where typically we're sending people down to help them. So
right.
The coast came up and helped us. One system I heard was holding 75 911 calls, middle of the day, the next day after the storm had come through. So the brush is gone now, but they were still holding 75 calls. There were 75 people who needed 911, they thought in their head, but didn't get an ambulance for a while. So I think that's, the biggest thing is that people expect when they call 911 that an ambulance is going to get there in 10 and a half minutes and done. And during these disasters, we see that does not happen. So to be self-sufficient with the ability to manage allergic reactions, to be able to stop major bleeding, even just to minor splinting can help with pain management for, you've got a broken arm, leg, a shoulder dislocation, if you can bandage that just a little bit with some ice packs, you can manage yourself for a little bit and just kind of be able to be self-sufficient for a little bit until help gets there. I think opened up a lot of people's eyes in this area.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Were there any preps that you guys may or may not do that kind of, as you were responding to people having some of the worst times of their entire life, was there any lessons that you learned, like, oh, if they would have done this, things would have been better?
I think having some kind of generator battery backup was the biggest thing I took away from this. Even my parents didn't. I thought my parents had a generator, and like in the middle of the storm, they call Candace, go, hey, we're out of power, blah, blah. So once I got done,
worked 30 hours.
I went to help my parents, and I'm like, all right, let's get you set up with a battery generator. Let's get you set up. So just having that backup is important. Having a way to have clean water, whether it's not you have a water filtration system like a Berkey or the survival straw, whatever, but just have some water. Like have the ability to have food, water, shelter, and some electricity. That goes a long way, and that'll get you through the process. But man, just people that needed water, that didn't have a way to get clean water. And
then 2 or 3 days after the storm, Tommy called you. They had a lady came into their food pantry they were doing, and she had food, but she had no way to cook her food. And we had a Coleman camper stove a camp stove we had not used in years. I'd honestly forgot we had it. It was kind of like a backup prep. We had used it years ago when we lost power, when we did not have a gas stove, because we have a gas stove now. So if you have matches without the power, you can still light the stove. So we did donate that for them to give out to somebody. And now I can't find one to replace it. They're like double the price now because they're all getting bought and sent to North Carolina, but it's fine. When everything settles down, I'll replace it.
Yeah.
But that would be an option, just to be able to, if you do have food, cook the food. Especially if you have a small generator that you've got other stuff plugged into, having just some simple things. I think the Coleman stove before the price went up was $60. And the little propane tanks are like $6 or $7 a piece. So just having that set aside as a way to be able to cook some food, or if you have a grill, having an extra propane tank, or some simple things you can do just to be able to prepare food.
It was awesome seeing the community come together with neighbors helping cut trees, people, trees fell in our house and neighbors coming over to help cut that up and get road access. People with tractors clearing roadways and stuff like that. And I think that was pretty cool to see. We would be driving down the road going to a call, and you just see just neighborhoods being cleared by people because we're overwhelmed. Road and bridges is overwhelmed. All departments are overwhelmed. So to build to see neighborhoods come together and to have those relationships with your neighbors is important. We kind of talked about that before on this podcast, was that if I need something in the grid down situation, we were in was technically a grid down situation, to be able to go to my neighbor and be able to know their name and to be able to talk to them and have that relationship is huge. Our neighbor, the older couple, didn't have power, so we lent them a generator. But the old guy is helping so much. He's laughed at me with my tractor when I'm planting my garden. Like he'll tell me, "Hey, Sonny, it's time to start planting," or I'm out there trying to do something with the tractor. He laughs at me.
But he helps you.
He helps me. But it's, that having that relationship has been huge, that if I needed something, I can go to him, and he obviously needed something from me this time. So I was able to pay it back. But having that relationship with your neighbors, even if you're in a small neighborhood where houses are touching each other, in this time, you may need something, and you may need power. You may need water. You may need some food. So to have that relationship, to get out and go sit in your driveway and talk to your neighbors, is huge. Get off your cell phone and go talk to your neighbor. I think that may pay dividends long term.
Super smart. Not to be a conspiracy theorist or anything, and I totally am, actually. I didn't used to be, but
I am too.
Have you guys seen any federal participation in the recovery so far?
I have struggled with that, and I am a conspiracy theorist, but I also ask about 20 questions when I hear a situation. I want to know the truth. And my first thing is, I do think FEMA is completely overwhelmed themselves. I actually tried to call them, and I was 357th in line on the phone. So I do think they're overwhelmed. I didn't understand the process of FEMA. So I did a lot of digging and research trying to understand the process of FEMA. And my conclusion is it's a government run organization. So therefore it does suck. There's too much red tape. That needs to be, that needs to be streamlined. But at the same time, I understand that they do have to verify that it was your house that floated down the river. That, you know what I mean? Like, so there is this balance, and it's really frustrating because you do have people who all their identification floated down the river, and they're trying to prove they are who they are to get help. And so it's like there does need to be some special instance where they figure this out. But I know they don't need to give a bunch of money to somebody who wasn't affected. So that's frustrating. And I do think that therethere's a lot of confusion out there. The $750 apparently is a new thing. I didn't know that. My brother has dealt with FEMA, and he said, because he lives in Florida, he was surprised that they were giving people $750. He said they'd not done that before. And I do think that it's ridiculous that we are giving as much money to Ukraine as we are, and we're giving so much money to illegal aliens, and then we're making Americans jump through hoops. So I don't know. It's a very frustrating situation.
I'm with you on that.
What about how you think maybe the hurricane like wiped out where voting is and stuff like that?
I don't think that. I said, so here's the thing with HARP and all these things. I like to wonder and watch. I like to wonder and watch, and the truth eventually comes out. But
yes,
I'm not going to claim anything I don't know is true.
No, I dig it.
You know, I like to watch and I like to read and I like to see, but we don't ever know what's true. And if it's not true, then I'm not going to claim it to be true until I know it's true.
Right.
I think the technology that the government has would probably scare us. Like if we knew what they actually could do. And the fact this thing went to a Cat 5 so fast and just stayed a Cat 5, like, I'm not saying that he did anything, but it would, like, if you came back and told me the government can control that hurricane and make it stronger, I'm like, okay, that's probably true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I also do know, like, if they're doing any cloud seeding, I could totally see somebody being like, okay, we're going to do this and it's going to help in it, and it do the opposite and then be like, oops.
Right.
I don't think they have it on remote control. Like, that would be pretty cool if you could remote control a hurricane. Because I guess some areas we could send it to. But yeah, it's definitely interesting.
Yeah, it is. And I see so much on the news all the time, and I try not to believe anything that I see. That's my policy, is just believe nothing and enjoy life.
Yes.
But, you know, when you see conspiracy after conspiracy, just like, oh, no, that was actually true. Oh, no, that was actually true. Oh, no, that was actually true. It's, you know.
It does. And that's where I'm like you. I try to watch.
Yeah.
I like to be informed, but if it's true, it'll come out.
Yeah. Definitely.
It's definitely interesting that, you know, I've seen stuff talk about where Western North Carolina is. A lot of that is red that's going to vote. And so, like, Asheville itself, Asheville City is blue, hardcore.
And it got hit really hard, too.
So I'm like, it's kind of a balance. Like, I was like, all right, so they did get Western North Carolina, which is going to vote red, but the city itself is hardcore blue. It's heavy populated. So I'm like, and so voting is going to be an issue, I think, in several weeks. You know, 3 weeks out now. Like, voting is going to be a problem in North Carolina. But so I think they'll figure out how to get the polling booths open. Yeah.
Yeah. And they've already made some changes to state law to like support different options of voting. But yeah, pretty nuts. What did I miss anything? Was there any other stuff that was fun or interesting or dangerous or?
Well, I was thinking today that you would think, like, if the power was out, that you'd just be sitting at home doing nothing. And I was exhausted from running around doing things.
Yeah.
Like, I thought, you know, the power will be out for a few days. We'll just chill and relax. And it was the whole, I think, helping people and trying to figure out. One thing that was really bizarre that surprised me was some of the main roads that had like big intersections, 4-lane roads, did not get power on for days and days. I really would have thought they would have got that back up really fast. I had driven to the other side of town one day and people were starting to get power back. Some people were starting to get power back at this point. So I expected this big road to have power back. It did not. And it was a nightmare of traffic because everybody was treating it like a 4-way stop. It took forever to go half a mile or so. It was ridiculous. So I actually, on the way home, decided to go the back roads and take all the detours and all the 1-lane roads because the trees were down. It was much safer to do that than try to go down what I thought would be the safe route.
Right. I believe it.
So that was weird to be that many days afterwards and still main roads not even have power for the street lights.
Yeah. I mean, it was surprising that there's still places that are just now getting their power back too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just nuts. I see in the show notes got some new products going on over at Medical Gear Outfitters.
Yeah, we added so that was a problem we ran into. Like, I guess I could talk about that is, so the house is on a whole house generator, but our shop, which is on the property, does not have power. So we got backed up a while. We're getting caught up now, but we got caught up. So some people were pretty grumpy. And I understand, like they placed their order, like they may not necessarily know where we're located.
Mhm.
So we weren't able to ship orders out for quite a while because we had no power. So that's something I want to work on is getting a separate power to the shop, whether it be battery backup or a generator or something like that we can run power on. But once we got the shop got caught up, they were awesome. They got caught up fairly quickly. We added some new products. So one was the egg shear micro holster, which is nice if you're going to attach your egg shears to a molly or a belt or something like that, your backpack. It keeps your egg shears nice and secure, which I like that as well. We also, that's the other one. Keep going.
Let's see. I'll go back.
Keep going, scroll down, go to the next page. There we go.
Oh, these. Oh, yeah, that's fancy.
Yeah, pretty nice. Like I said, it clips very nice into molly, kind of holds your egg shears nice and secure. So that was a product we added. I like those. We added the trauma shears. There's the sheath here. So it comes in multiple colors, but it just keeps your trauma shears secure and clean. And it has hook and loop on the back. So anything that has hook and loop, you can stick this on, and this is going to secure your trauma shears. So I like that.
Yeah.
That's something different.
$17 on the website.
Yeah, Velcro hook and loop.
That's why I was like, I would call that Velcro, but hook and loop is what it's.
Sounds better.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to pay a royalty when you say Velcro.
Yeah. The other thing we added was a cat tourniquet holder. So there again, it has hook and loop on either side, so you could put it in like your cummerbund or on your plate carrier, something like that. It's made in America, so we really like that. So we have a product that's made in America. Holds it here. It has enough room. You could add a Sharpie, something like that, if you wanted to, as well. And then we added
the Dollar Armory.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yep, Dollar Armory's making this. We're just distributing, and then their IFACT here. So this will fit in a mag pouch, or it fits in your pocket, things like that. It's the same size. So I like that it would go into your mag pouch. You're going to give up 28 rounds of ammo, but medical might be important as well.
Yeah.
So this will slide in there. It has hook and loop on the front. You could put some kind of identifier on it. Opens up. So now we have hyphen chest seals. We have a SWAT T tourniquet and combat galls. So I like the fact that it's pretty compact. I think in conjunction with this right here, you have a pretty compact first aid kit or trauma kit. So you have a cat tourniquet, which we know works. You have chest seals. You have a SWAT T that can be used as a tourniquet or a pressure bandage, and chest seals. The only thing I would add would be like an MPA. And you've got room in here to add it. And so now you've got a fairly small kit that's your trauma kit.
Those are cool. I dig those. I think maybe I saw something on social media about those, but I didn't realize that it would fit in like a mag pouch. That's very cool.
Yeah. So it's a different option. Like I said, it's a product that's made in America. So I know people are always excited for that as well. So that's why we wanted to back them. They're a small company too. So it kind of makes sense to work together.
Yeah. Heck yeah. I mean, my only question now is, does it come in multicam black?
It does.
Okay.
And it comes in woodland as well. So I was like, all right, we got woodland, we got black multicam, we got multicam, got tactical gray. So we have all the colors.
See, the important stuff is covered. You got it. Look good.
They all come in those colors, so you can match out your kit and look perfect.
Heck yeah, that's awesome. Remind me what the coupon code is for people.
Yeah, coupon code Civilian Medical. That's going to save you 10%.
Yep, medicalgearoutfitters.com. All right.
Patterns for you guys, for you on your company you're in?
For Camorado?
Yeah.
I added a couple one that is pink based for Breast Cancer Awareness Month in October, and one that is purple for domestic violence awareness in October. And they've both actually sold more than I thought they would. And a portion of those proceeds go to support organizations that fight those things.
Awesome. Cool.
In fact, I actually, someone just ordered the other day. They ordered the entire purple ensemble, like pretty much everything. So
Nice.
booty shorts.
I was
hoodies,
about to
rainbow-
say, do the Hoochie Daddy shorts come? You have to order me some of those colors because
Yeah.
I stole his Hoochie Daddy shorts.
Yeah. We'll get some purple Hoochie Daddy shorts ordered.
Yeah. I'm gonna make Dietrich some like knee-high shorts because no one wants to see that again.
No,
Right?
nobody wants to see that again. So, yeah, she says I can't order anything more from you right now. I got to hold off. So
I get it. You got a lot of stuff.
A little obsessed, and I was like, he will have every color, and that's all he'll ever wear. Like I had to make him buy different clothes because all he wore were black or gray condor colored shirts for a while. I was like, could you please buy something else?
So I have 2 of your shirts, so I can't buy anything. I'm gonna pause right now. So
It's okay. We'll still be there. I promise.
I might let you buy a pink one just for fun.
Okay, we'll get it ordered.
That would be good. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for kind of the behind the scenes look. I know what we read in the news and see on social media and stuff like that, but to actually hear it from you guys that are out there in the thick of it is super cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you for another great podcast.
Yeah. And we will see you guys again very, very soon. Hopefully no more natural disasters in between episodes, but hey,
Yes, definitely.
you never know. Colorado's due. See you next time. Firearms Radio Network, Civilian Medical Podcast. Goodbye. We love you.
Find us and subscribe at civmedical.com.